Welcome to This Week's OK at Work with myself, Sarah Sawyer, and my colleague, Russell Berger, both attorneys at Offit Kurman. And today we are talking about stay and exit interviews and why they're important, what you should do, kind of whether, kind of what types of things to cover. And I'll kind of start us off with exit interviews and what they are and kind of why they are helpful. So often, employee turnover can really be a costly thing for employers. We've talked about it quite frequently on here. It was definitely something that was a big challenge during COVID. When we were having trouble, people were having trouble finding employees, and really we're trying to retain good talent and just keep staffed up after the initial kind of scaries of the COVID situation wore off. But it's also very applicable, just generally speaking. And so when you've got good employees that are leaving, or you've got, especially if you've got kind of a high attrition rate, and just generally speaking, exit interviews can be really helpful to understand a little bit more about why an employee might be leaving your organization, and just kind of and the key is to these things: an interview, not an interrogation, not a suggest the answers exercise, right? So really, you don't know the answer to the question necessarily, or you might think you do, and you might hear things that might surprise you when you ask really why someone left or where they're headed, and kind of gathering that information.
Yeah, I think we may have said it when we talked about interviewing and about the challenge and the problem of asking leading questions. But definitely in an exit interview, you don't want to ask leading questions, because the whole purpose of the person's already leaving, they've made up their mind, they're out the door, they've let you know, you've planned for the transition. And the real purpose is we just want data points. We want information. We want things you might not have otherwise shared with us if you still had to report to the person, your prior manager. We just want to get that person talking and sharing information so that we as the employer can learn more about how a particular aspect of our operation is functioning. And with respect to stay interviews, I mean, the main idea there is, well, we don't have to wait till someone's leaving to ask them these questions. And obviously, you don't necessarily have the benefit of total candor because the person's on their way out the door like you would with an exit interview. But you do have the added benefit of getting people, if asked, people will share information that they wouldn't necessarily volunteer. And also for existing employees, it can be an effective engagement tool as well as a retention tool, because now employees feel like, hey, you're listening to me, you're asking me what I think, what I see, you're clearly valuing my opinion. So, I feel better about working here.
And
Particularly if there's changes made as a response.
Yeah, and definitely doing something with the information is key. Not just asking these questions and then just saying like, oh, well, that's nice, and not paying attention to, especially for the stay interviews, because people notice that. But these also, they provide additional opportunities for things to come to the surface, issues that might be going on that maybe people haven't felt comfortable reporting. So that's also another aspect of these. That's not necessarily what you're setting out to find necessarily. And hopefully people are reporting things like discrimination, harassment, workplace culture issues. Hopefully they're already reporting those through your normal reporting policies and procedures. But this also kind of provides an opportunity for maybe if they're not, or if there's something that people weren't quite sure if it raises to that level, might come out as part of this process, or just some things that are on the edges that maybe aren't straight up illegal or discriminatory or something that's happening, but could alert you to some issues that might be happening within your organization that are flying under the radar.
Yeah, absolutely. And to your point, Sarah, like it really can run the gamut from things that might be, legal issues that we would be concerned about, to, just the general culture, to a manager style. It can just be really helpful information both for you and for with stay interviews for current employees.
I think sometimes employers are afraid to do these for that reason, that they don't know what's going to come out of people's mouths, and that can be a little intimidating. But I think if you think of it as, these things are, people feel a certain way or have certain thoughts on things, regardless of whether you ask them about it, you're better off knowing than not knowing. So even if it can be a little intimidating, if done well, it can be a great tool.
Absolutely.
Well, thanks, Russell. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, Sarah.